September 3rd started out like any other day. Got ready for class, and then after class I was going to hang out with one of my friends. He attends SFSU, so we were just hanging out talking. He was asking me how I liked SFSU. We were having a good time. Then we started talking about if we ever gotten a broken bone, ever gotten surgery, and I said no to both those questions. And then I went on with my day, he went on with his day. And then I got lunch with one of my other friends that lives in San Diego that goes there too. And then he actually invited me to watch the Chargers game with him and a couple of his friends at his dorm, but I told him no. I was going with my roommates actually to the mall to watch a movie that we got free tickets from my RA. So I went back to my dorm. That's when we started walking over to the mall, which is right behind our campus. I was contemplating if I should go to McDonald's first to get myself a frozen lemonade, or if we should find the theater first and then I could head back to McDonald's to get my drink. But at that time we decided we needed to find the movie theater first. So we went across the street, and then last minute we were just like, okay, McDonald's is there, let's just cross the street, back again to go there. So I went to go press the button. And this is the button I pressed to cross back to the street, and this is the corner where we got hit by the car. And then I went back to the group. We were just talking, waiting to cross, and my back was turned to the street. And that's when I heard a loud scream, and instantly my body was hit by this car. But it's really hard to explain how my body was being thrown around by the car. I just remember I was just hit really hard, and I just went to the ground, and I just was shaken fiercely. It was really scary. It just felt like an earthquake, and I just couldn't focus at any point. Everything was blurring. And I was just laying there on my side in fetal position, and I was hearing screaming and crying. And at the time I was in shock, so I didn't feel any pain. I just frantically was thinking I was gonna die, and I needed to call my boyfriend and my parents. So I was freaking out, trying to find my phone, just laying there. My roommate, one of my roommates, ran to me, and I was just holding her hand, telling her do not let go, and telling her to help me find my phone. And somehow I found my phone in my hand. I don't know how that happened. And I called my boyfriend. He didn't pick up the first time, but I called him again, picked up the second time, and I just told him, I just said I got hit by a car. And he's like, what do you mean? Are you joking? He just, thought I was fine because I wasn't, in pain. Well, I didn't sound like I was in pain. I was just in shock. And I'm like, no, I got hit. I'm telling the truth. Sorry, I'm struggling there. I got hit by a car. And I was just telling him that I loved him. If anything bad happened, that he'll do great and that I loved him. And he told me to remain on the phone, but I was like, dude, I need to call my parents. So he let me go. I called my parents. My sister answered the phone, and I didn't want to tell her. Didn't thought that was appropriate. I don't know. But I'm like, can you give the phone to Dad? And she's like, what do you want? Trying to play with me, getting on my nerves. I'm like, okay, fine. I got hit by a car. Let me talk to Dad. So she gave the phone to Dad, and I just told him what happened, and he was just making sure I was okay, asked if the ambulance was there, and I had to give the phone to my roommate because the ambulance did come right away. So once I gave the phone to my roommate, I just felt all of a sudden pressure in my lower back. It was very uncomfortable, and then I felt this warm sensation around my lower back front area, and I thought I was bleeding to death or something. There was no blood, but it felt like there was blood oozing out of my lower back. It was really scary to think about, but I was just laying there, and actually once I got hit by the car, I immediately moved my ankles and my toes to make sure I had movement, and basically trying to check out my spine too to make sure I didn't lose any nerves feeling in those areas. And I was able to move my ankles and my toes. The ambulance came. They asked me questions that I don't remember now, but They put a neck collar on me, and then they rolled me onto the stretcher, which was very painful. I just felt a lot of popping on my lower back. I was screaming. It was very unpleasant. They put me in the ambulance, and they took my vitals immediately, and they said everything looked fine. They put an IV in, and then they just drove me carefully to the ER because any bump we went over was very painful in my lower back. I got to the ER within like 15 minutes. They like stripped me off my clothes. So these were the clothes I was wearing at the time I got hit by the car, and there was a person next to me that had Chipotle, and their Chipotle flew out of their hands and splattered all over me when I got hit. So there was like a casual burrito just laying on me when I was in the ambulance. They made me describe what happened at the scene of the accident, and I tried telling them to the best of my ability because I didn't see the car at all, so it was kind of hard to explain. But I told them, and then I just was in a lot of pain. I was scared that basically my number one fear was I going to die, and I kept on asking it, and no one was like answering me, so that was freaking me out even more. And then they told me I would be okay, and then my second question was, will I be able to walk? An hour went by, then they finally admitted me to get x-rays and a lot of MRIs, and just the whole like moving me from my bed onto the x-ray machine area was very painful again. They had to roll me on my side, and I heard all the popping, cracking, pressure, just everything tightening. I couldn't straighten out my legs still at the time because my muscles were just in shock and tight together that there's no way I could straighten them without screaming and being in pain. So took a lot of x-rays. It was very unpleasant. I think I cursed at one of the nurses. So at like 12 in the morning, I finally got to see my aunt and my uncles and my boyfriend Matthew and my mom. It was very emotional. And then at 1 in the morning, they had to do a quick procedure on my knee. So they had to drill a rod into my femur, and then they put a handle connecting to the rod, and then they put a string on the handle and then pulled it over my bed, basically to pull down my left leg because it was one detached from the pelvis, and two, the muscle was jammed up into the left side of my pelvis, so they had to pull that down. That was in there for about a day. Then they told me I had an open book pelvis fracture, which is where the pubis ramus, the area I circled, is opened up like a book and is no longer together. So that's why mine looks deformed now, because they couldn't fix it. My pelvis was detached from my spine, and I would need to get a surgery the next day. So it was a very chaotic day for me, for just trying to watch a movie with my roommates. So the following day, I got admitted for surgery. It took about 4 hours. I don't really remember much of it, but I woke up with 2 rods sticking out of my pelvis, and that's called an external fixation, which basically stabilizes my pelvis and neutralizes like the pressure from the back and the front of my pelvis. That would be in there for 6 weeks. And then I got 3 screws in the back connecting my pelvis and my spine together, so they'll stay in for the rest of my life. They then explained to me the recovery plan for me, which would be 12 weeks, 3 months, non-weight bearing, which means no standing, walking. I could place my feet on the ground, but I can't put any weight on there. At Kaiser, they talked to me about dropping out of SFSU, and at the time I was telling myself, oh no, I could remain in college at SFSU, like I could remain in school with my injury. And then slowly reality hit me, and I'm like, there's no way I could do this alone. Just getting up in my bed after laying down for a week and a half, like, was really hard to do on my own. I could only stay up for 3 seconds before I felt like passing out, so I had to lay back down. I had to learn how to get out of bed onto my wheelchair without using my feet, standing up using my feet or anything, which was really difficult at the time, even because I had the bar sticking out of my pelvis, so that limited me a lot of range of motion. I started thinking, like, if I wouldn't have stopped to tie my shoe, that I could have avoided the car, or if we stopped at McDonald's first, I could have avoided the car accident. It's like, you can't think like that at all, because it just is negative, and recovering negatively isn't good at all. So I kind of brushed that aside. Actually, a girl I went to school with, her sister was in the same sort of accident like me, and she came to visit me and told me about her recovery. We wouldn't have known she broke her pelvis like me, and that gave me hope, a lot of hope, and she was just there helping me, and she brought me a lot of cool little things, a journal that people wrote in, and it was really nice of her. When I came home, for the longest time, I didn't want to go out in public because I had an external fixator coming out of my pelvis. So it was really hard wearing anything with that, so I wore scrubs for about a solid month and a half. It was very fashionable. My daily routine was basically wake up, watch TV, and then try to get up in my wheelchair. But the first month, that was really hard to do, kind of painful. Every day I had to clean my wound site around the pin area. It's called pin site wound. So I had to clean that every day so no infection would begin. I became an expert on cleaning that for about a month and a half, or a month. I had to get shots every day called Lovenox. It was to prevent any blood clots, since I wasn't walking anymore. My parents would give that to me, or my nurse. I wouldn't trust myself. 3 weeks after being home, I went to Kaiser to make an appointment with my new doctor. He looked at my x-rays and basically told me I would be walking with a limp, and that I'll have pain lasting till the day I die. And that news just kind of crushed me a little bit. Started crying, and I asked him, will I be able to play soccer? And he said it all depends on how bad it is, how bad of a limp it would be when I start walking. Then the next time I saw him, which was a week before my surgery to remove my external fixator, we took new x-rays, and he actually took back what he said about my limp and the long-lasting pain. That he said that my pelvis has healed in ways he wouldn't expect it to be healing, which it's healing way better than he thought it would be. So the chances of me having a limp are slimmer now, but we still don't know until I start walking, which is the first week of December, by the way. Getting used to the wheelchair was sort of hard at the beginning. I had no upper body strength, but a lot of leg muscle from soccer, so it was weird not using any muscle from my legs, but now focusing up all on my biceps and my triceps. I've gotten really strong in that area now, but really weak in my legs. Kind of hard at the beginning maneuvering it, and it felt really heavy in the beginning, but now I'm really used to it, and I'm popping wheelies 24/7. I'm joking, but sort of not. But a lot of people in public when I went out would just stare at me, and I would just kind of stare back, just like, okay, what are you looking at? I know you're looking at me in the wheelchair. But and then some of their questions were really interesting to me. Some lady came up to me and asked, is the wheelchair permanent? And I'm just looking at her like, okay, that question didn't really affect me, but it might affect other people. But if it was permanent for me, I don't want to hear that question being asked to me if it was. Also, someone asked on Halloween, because I dressed up as a Padres player, they asked me, is the wheelchair part of the costume? Like 3 people asked me that, and I'm just like, what kind of questions are you guys asking? No, the wheelchair is not a part of the costume. I don't know who wants to be in a wheelchair for Halloween. It's part of the costume. It doesn't make any sense to me. But, those questions just made me think about, like, society and how people, like, just straight up ask those questions without first thinking about the person and their feelings, or, maybe the person doesn't want to hear anything about the wheelchair because then it brings up bad memories, like what I went through. For me, it doesn't really bother me explaining my story, but then I think about other people, and people may not be like me, where I'm just kind of, like, laid back and, like, easygoing with those things. So it was just really interesting to me with, like, the questions people ask me. Everyday things are kind of like a workout now for me. That used to be super easy back then without the wheelchair. Like, going into bed, I can't just easily plop myself in bed anymore. I have to park my wheelchair next to the side of the bed. Then take out the armrest so I could scoot over onto the bed, and then I lift myself onto the bed, and then my legs just follow. And then I have to plan things like, if I'm going out to eat or something, I have to make sure, is it wheelchair accessible? Are the bathrooms wheelchair accessible? A lot of things I've never really thought about before this happened. It's an eye-opener, especially going to restaurants and I don't fit in the rows because of my wheelchair. You don't really think about those things till you're actually in a wheelchair. So it's very interesting now, especially I've noticed like how messed up the sidewalks are. It's really hard to push myself, or someone pushed me on a messed up sidewalk, or parking that doesn't have handicap parking, which is hard because sometimes there's no room for my wheelchair to be next to the car so I can get out and into the car. So lately I've been going to physical therapy so I can strengthen my legs, so when I do start walking again, which is gonna be a very slow process. I'm kind of nervous for that moment, I guess, because I haven't walked in 3 months. I'm afraid about pains or the pressure I'm gonna feel. Just gonna probably be emotional a little bit. 3 months not walking. It's crazy because I'm so active and I'm always into playing soccer. So it's gonna be a good, exciting, nervous day for me. Also, things that kind of not really bother me, but I guess bother me a little bit, is seeing things on like Twitter and seeing people post, I want to get hit by a car so they could pay for my tuition. Well, I got hit by a car, I survived the hit, and my tuition is not getting paid. Just be careful what you say, because I actually did say, like, not that I wanted to get hit by a car, but 3 days before the accident, I was with my boyfriend and my roommate, and we were walking to the McDonald's, and there was actually this really fast car coming by, and I'm like, dude, if you hit us, you're gonna pay for our tuition. Then later on that week, I got hit by a car, and my tuition is not getting paid for, and I suffered a really horrible injury. And people should just watch out what they say, because I've seen things on like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, things like I'm gonna try to get hit by a car or something for my tuition to get paid. Just be careful what you wish for, seriously, even if you're joking. And I know I've been talking for a while, so I'm just gonna quickly wrap it up, but I just wanted to make this video to show people my recovery and the story of what actually happened, because I know a lot of people have been telling it and kind of twist the story a little bit, so I just wanted to get it out there. And also, just be careful when you're driving too. Like, look out for pedestrians. Do not text and drive. Do not be distracted at all, because you could just look down and then look up, and next thing you know, you're on a sidewalk hitting people without like knowing it, and coming out of your car and saying, why are you guys standing in the street? Because that's what happened to us, and we weren't even on the street. So just be aware of everything now, and thank you for listening.